look at that. Hey, look, if I just pick up my device that's right in front of me and search things, I can figure things out.
You're listening to the Moist Boys Podcast.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Moist Boys Podcast. I am Josh, and today we are continuing Junerassic Park month with everyone's favorite film, really The Lost World, Jurassic Park. Just off the top, I want to say maybe underrated as far as films go. But so I am Josh.
I'm Jonathan.
I'm the best bro, Heather.
And I am Josue.
So right off the bat, what we forgot to mention in the last episode, which is really criminal, especially for myself and Jonathan, who are such big music guys. You can't forget the J Willie. That's
J Willie.
That's a crime. A crime against.
I was not present for most of the last episode, so I would have helped remind you.
You were wrangling kids.
I was wrangling toddlers, but no, the music in these films is life-altering.
So good.
No, to be fair, we did start with a version of a John Williams score. So I think that's maybe I had like, okay, we took care of that. But
yeah, we covered the base. No.
The soundtrack, because we were talking about it not long ago, Jonathan, you and I, and since then keeps getting queued up. I keep going through it. I'm just on a long drive or something like that, and it's just me. It's such a good score. It like is. That whole thing.
I don't remember where you got it from, but I remember you had a CD for a while and you were like, whatever. And like, I ended up kind of stealing it from you. Yeah. Like, this is the best thing yet, but it was basically just John Williams scores.
There had like Chariots of Fire. And the main problem with it is that when they were like coding it onto the disc, they didn't line up the tracks with the track numbers. So like songs would end, or the beginning of track 2 was like the end of the first track, and then it just completely fell to shit after that. So like you couldn't go to a song to listen to it. You had to like listen to the last minute and a half of Chariots of Fire to get into the whole Jurassic Park soundtrack. Yeah, pretty much.
There was a in the Jurassic Park theme, there's a moment where somebody just like leaned on a button and it just cuts from like the buildup immediately to the end of the crescendo of the score. And so you're just sitting there and it's like very quiet and everything. And then it's like the thing happening now, the music. And you're just like, that's not clearly how the song goes, because nobody jump cuts in the middle of playing music like this. Like, that's physically impossible. Somebody fucked up this whole thing.
It's a whole nother band waiting right over here, just waiting for that sign.
I will say that the main theme for Jurassic Park is deceptively simple, because you'll see so many bands, like a guitar, bass, and drummer doing cover of it, and like you're, oh yeah, that's the theme song. But then when you actually listen to it, so much is going on. Like John Williams uses every part of the orchestra and makes sure like. No, they're not all doing the same exact thing, except for like maybe when they're doing like the slow build up, when you have like all the strings kind of doing.
Yeah, everybody just that's.
But like for so much of it, you have like, if you listen to it, there's so many layers of like the strings, horns are going. You'll have tons of bells and all kinds of stuff happening at the same time.
That's just like listening to somebody who actually understands all the working parts of the orchestra that they're being handed, and knowing how to use all of those parts, and not just being like, and then everybody hits an E note right here. It's like, well, okay, here's the E note that like the violins will play. Okay, well, what accompanies that? We'll have this other part of the orchestra over here. They'll do whatever. I'm not going to go into a bunch of like, my brain cannot comprehend after 2 days of band practice. I cannot music right now. So,
well, I've watched a ton of videos about John Williams scores and how much work he puts into everything that he does. And I think it's really like, he doesn't just sit down and go, what would be cool to play here? Like he takes out all of the sheet music he wrote for every other film that he's done that on. It's like, how can I mess around with this? So like with the he's done, or he will be doing 9 Star Wars films coming up this year, and like all the different themes that he'll pull back and use from like every single thing just to relate all the characters together. It's all, yeah, he knows what he's doing.
That guy knows what he's doing.
That's why he does so many scores. That's why he's on so many films.
So this film, again, I think this beginning is kind of a weak beginning, mostly because the actress that plays the little girl at the beginning, I'm pretty sure she's not actually British, but she's trying to put on a British accent.
She's pretending to be British. That's the same thing.
She puts on that little girl thinks she's British accent. But like to have her parents have one British accent, but she has a completely different one that she got in an LA acting studio is kind of jarring, because she does like I've watched Mary Poppins 50 times.
Also, quick side note, Camilla Belle.
Yeah, definitely not British.
Definitely not British. And I mean, just double check that on IMDb. She turns out
motherfucker.
Nope, Los Angeles.
Yeah,
there so it is.
She definitely has that. I'm from LA doing a British accent, which is weird because the parents are British, so you think they would
have just cast.
You didn't have British kid money, Spielberg.
Maybe they couldn't. Maybe you can't fly a kid from Britain to Hawaii.
Not in those times.
Not back in 96.
1996.
So this movie came out in 1997. So by this point in time, both Jonathan and I were old enough to go see it in the theaters.
Hell yeah!
We went and saw it at an old, well, it's still around, drive-in theater, one of the last handful that are left on this continent.
Yeah, I don't remember what's still there, because it's still there. They also do double features. I don't remember what movie was paired with this.
It was 97 in the summertime. So
right, what would that have been?
Twister.
She's Portuguese, by the way.
Who?
I'm reading all about Camilla Belle now.
Oh, really?
I'm like trying to figure out. I'm like, how did she get into this movie? Like, what is her connection? She's Portuguese, actually.
Well, that's on the other side of the continent as well.
Yeah, she speaks fluent Portuguese, actually.
Oh, cool.
Mm-hmm.
Good for you.
Good for her.
Yeah.
Is she still alive?
Her mother is Brazilian, and her father is a lot of things.
Nice. Hey, Camilla Belle, come be on the podcast.
Yeah, we'll talk about
what else have you been
Don't
on?
Answer the Door? What's that movie called?
When a Stranger Calls.
When a Stranger Calls.
We'll talk about Practical Magic.
10,000 BC.
Ooh, there you go. That's the hit right
I think
there.
those are that's the last one I am aware of that she was in.
No, she's been in a lot.
Been in a lot of stuff.
That's why I said that I was aware of it. I'm not paying attention to any of that.
Are you not super up on the Camilla Belle stuff, like videography?
I should be, because I feel like... Anyway.
She was in Push, by the way.
Did not see that movie. Is that the Chris Evans one?
I think so.
Yeah. I always get that and Jumper confused.
That's
it was the
Darth Vader.
There's a whole like interwoven fan-made like universe for movies like Jumper, Push. What was the one where the guy takes the pill, and I think it's Bradley.
Oh, Limitless.
Limitless.
Yeah.
Like a whole like mix of like movies like that from that time, like a pre-MCU like cinematic universe for those.
Yeah.
Really all survives in like some random bro's headcanon.
Oh, that like look it up sometime. It is.
She was in a movie with Jimmy Smith. I've gone down the rabbit hole.
Sorry. Here on the Camilla Belle
on the Camilla Belle podcast.
So surprise guest for you.
Camilla Belle ends up getting attacked by compies after trying to feed them really pale roast beef. Like, she calls it roast beef, but that's essentially it's turkey that she's pulling out of that sandwich.
Yeah.
Like, you don't see roast beef doesn't shred like a fowl would.
It doesn't.
So you get like 50 guys in sailor uniforms come running out to save her, and then one of the more humorous crosscuts is the Camilla Belle's mom is screaming. Smash cut to Jeff Goldblum taking a big old yawn in front of palm trees and on a poster in a subway.
Thank you for finding the image.
I'm looking through the photos because I'm realizing that I confuse 2 and 3 in my brain a lot.
Well,
And
to be
so,
fair,
like-
they do take place
Be fair.
on the
take
same
place on the
island.
They do take place on the same island. And so I'm like flipping through the photos on IMDb being like, wait, which one's this one? Which one's this one?
Well, they take place on different parts of the island.
Yeah, and then
I was being like, is this the Vince Vaughn one? Because I actually really like the Vince Vaughn one.
yeah, I think we'll get to it, but I think that goes into it's kind of underrated because it gets dragged by a lot of people for a small fraction of the total runtime.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So we catch up with Jeff Goldblum, who is one of the 4 returning cast members. There is a cameo when Jeff Goldblum goes to visit Mr. John Hammond, once again played by Richard Attenborough, who is somehow aged 20 years in the 4 years since Jurassic Park, because they really have him. I don't know if he was almost dead at this point or if it's just the character, but it's like one of those performances where you're like, is that acting though? Just because
I'm trying to think now when he passed away. I don't think he passed away that long ago.
Yeah, but
he died in 2014.
Yeah, but it's definitely one of those things where the way he was looked like, I was concerned is that Richard Attenborough actually on death's door?
Is he about to die? They had to film this on that one day because that was all they could get.
Yeah, every time they roll Robert Redford out for another movie, I'm just like, is this when he's about to kick the bucket? Or
that one's gonna hurt.
Yeah. So
They all hurt.
Yeah.
They all hurt.
So we get the reunion of all the original cast members with Tim and Lex make a brief appearance real quick. They also aged quite a bit in the 4 years since, but that's more understandable because they were
They
little
literally
kids.
aged 4
They
years.
probably really did. Yeah.
Yeah. And then this is the part where we're introduced to the new villain, which ends up being the one villain that the series is able to come up with going forward, which is the greedy nephew.
Why is that the character that they latch onto and are just like, that's who the bad guy has to be from now on?
Yeah. At this point, I had brought it up before, but Ian Malcolm mentions that 3 people had died during Jurassic Park. So we were discussing who we thought those 3 people were, and who they had excluded because actually on the island 4 people ended up dying. Dennis Nedry, Ray, which I found out was his first name, Ray Arnold. Muldoon. Does Muldoon have a first name?
Robert Muldoon.
I have a question, Jonathan, specifically for you that has been driving me nuts. In the Indomitable Rex Lego movie,
The Indominus Escape.
yes, is that Muldoon who's chasing around the dinosaurs trying to shoot him? Because it sounds like
No, it's Hoskins.
Oh, okay. Because they always have a Muldoon character.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And they get substantially downgraded after this movie.
They do.
I think, that was one of the other things, which we might as well just go into real quick. This has a ridiculous cast in it.
Oh my God, yeah.
Not even the returning Jeff Goldblum, Richard Attenborough. You also have Peter Stormare, Julianne Moore, right before she would go on to do The Big Lebowski with the Coen brothers, which I just realized with the Coen brothers. This was literally the year before The Big Lebowski came out. Mm-hmm. So it's you had Pete Postlethwaite, you've got
Vince Vaughn,
Richard Schiff.
I was gonna say, you're forgetting my favorite one, which is Richard Schiff.
Yeah. The cast of this movie is...
They literally could have finished shooting this, and then the Coen brothers roll up, and then they start shooting a movie because
we're like, okay, everybody get into this
Just
band.
one of those. Give me one of them.
I don't think they've worked with Pete Postlethwaite.
I don't think they did.
The only thing I can think of, which I know they weren't involved in, was The Usual Suspects, but
yeah, off the top of my head, I can think of 3 movies he was in, which are The Lost World, The Usual Suspects, and then Romeo and Juliet.
I've never seen that all the way through.
Yeah, it's good.
Romeo plus Juliet.
Yeah, my bad. Romeo plus Juliet.
I've heard a lot of the soundtrack, just I've never sat all the way through. I've seen most of it in bits and pieces.
It does. So I feel like this. I'm going to be tangent guy again.
There we go.
There we go.
You're always tangent guy.
But I feel like it is because it's the movie where like Baz Luhrmann kind of discovered his template that he likes to use for movies now, which is just like 10 minutes right at the beginning of the movie, just balls to the wall nonsense, just everything flying at you as fast as possible. And then, which is also how he introduces all of the characters. And then after that, the movie continues and happens and is like watchable and is a normal movie. But he does it with this one, and he does it with Moulin Rouge. From what I've heard, I haven't actually seen it, but from what I've heard, he kind of does it with Gatsby as well.
Yeah. It's the whole movie is balls to the wall garbage in The Great Gatsby. Yeah. Like so much to the fact that like my brain shut down and I literally fell asleep in the middle, like early afternoon, which I do not fall asleep in that early. Like I'm not a nap person, but like I put that movie on. It was like 2:00 in the afternoon. I was like, it just put me right out. And I when I woke up towards the end, I was like, I'm not rewinding this movie.
Yeah, that seems to just be how he thinks filmmaking happens. Yeah.
And it's brought him plenty of cash. Like it works for him, but like success.
Everybody now, well, actually, because he did
Australia.
He did Australia between Moulin Rouge and Gatsby. Which I feel like nobody saw.
No, I saw it. It's not bad. It doesn't like. It's definitely like harder to talk about than the rest of his movies. Yeah, it doesn't fit in that same sort of theme of fantastic bullshit going off everywhere.
Yeah.
Like, so does it not have that?
You can tell it's his movie. Just that, like, there is some of that, like the way things are introduced, the way things are. It feels like his movie, but it's clear like he needs all that spectacle to make you pay attention to it. Like,
because I feel like Strictly Ballroom kind of had that, but it felt like that movie was like he didn't have the money to go as crazy.
Right.
And so he
didn't
just
have
had
Nicole Kidman money.
Didn't have that Nicole Kidman money. So he just kind of like had to do what he could with what he could actually do.
Which for me, I think that's his best. That's my favorite movie of his. Like people, like obviously Moulin Rouge is probably his biggest as far as it was popular and people liked it. Mm-hmm. Like it made money and people liked it. Whereas like everything else, I feel like either I don't know how he gets these big giant spectacle money because like it doesn't seem like his movies are super popular.
Yeah, the people that know about him definitely know about him. Yeah, but like if you just brought it up in a room. Well, okay. Let's say the room has
not a good
10 people. I'm just gonna say there's 10 other people.
4 of them know who he is.
4 know who he is. The other 6 don't know who he is.
I do feel like a lot of his movies though are, if you mention him, it's much more of a but if you mention his movies it's very like oh yes, oh I love
the
that
Moulin
movie.
Rouge guy.
Oh yes, Romeo plus Juliet. Like that is like people know these movies and have like they know him by his movies but not by him. And that's why I think Australia has like that like it's a movie about Australia.
Yeah.
Is that a Crocodile Dundee? Like, is that?
So this film is geared more towards Richard Hammond being wanting to become an environmentalist all of a sudden.
Richard Attenborough?
Richard, what'd I say?
John Hammond? You said Richard Hammond?
He invented the organ, right? So he wants to be an environmentalist.
Good old Dick Hammond.
Dick Hammond. So he wants to send Jeff Goldblum, Richard Schiff, Vince Vaughn, and Julianne Moore to the island to like watch the dinosaurs so people know they're a thing, which I guess, spoiler alert, eventually that kind of works later in the series. Like he gets his wish, I guess.
A little bit.
I
mean, what he's trying to get them to do, though, he's basically being like,
not
hey,
fuck with the dinosaurs.
Go be my Nat Geo team, but without having Nat Geo money, even though he definitely had money to just do that.
Yeah. So Jeff Goldblum pretends like he's not going to do that for a couple of lines of dialogue until he finds out that Julianne Moore is already there. So then he decides to go with Richard Schiff and Vince Vaughn. They have a team put together. For some reason, he has his daughter show up at his workplace, which is always a bad idea.
You know,
why does she show up there?
That's what I was trying to remember, like how she
just gets dropped off.
Because her mom is going to go to Paris with her new boyfriend on vacation. Yeah. So she got dropped off. But he's going to send her with your kids. He's dating, in the movie, and the book, Sarah Harding, played by Julianne Moore. There's also this other woman that he's going to entrust.
An ex-girlfriend, maybe?
Named Karen, yeah. Oh, you love Karen, he says. So it's like, who? Karens. What kind? I mean, I guess if you're Jeff Goldblum, you just have women all over the place to dump your kids off with.
Well, I also feel like in the one of the things like this movie kind of does with this character is it takes him from being like, he's kind of an asshole in the first movie. He's kind of scummy, kind of like he does not think you're cool at all. He thinks you're a big old dork. But then this movie kind of comes around and it's just like, oh, hey, see, he'll be your friend. He'll hang out with you. But there's still all this stuff attached to him that's like, no, he's kind of a womanizer, kind of a dick, kind of an asshole.
Well, I mean, like he literally, in the first movie, he literally talks about looking for a future ex-Mrs. Malcolm.
Right.
And so in this movie, they demonstrate clearly there are at least...
That wasn't just a lie.
It's not just something that he says.
But he's still willing to risk his life to go save Julianne Moore on the island. Or what he thinks is saving Julianne Moore, which gets kind of muddled. So they end up...
To be fair, he had to save her so that she could win an Oscar later.
Yeah. He could take a break from acting for a while.
Yeah.
So his daughter ends up getting onto the bus without or the RV without anybody noticing. And this is one of the things. There's the island chain is called the
Los Cinco Muertos?
Yeah. Which the boat captain tells them, and everyone's like, ooh, what is that? Or like, everyone doesn't believe the boat captain, kind of. But literally in the scene before that, the daughter's name is Kelly, looks at the map, and that's like the legend next to the things. I was like, oh, that's literally on the map. But
they should know that the island chain is called that.
But Vince Vaughn's like, that's what they're called, the 5 deaths, supposedly. And it's like, you guys wrote down, so yeah, let's go with that.
Nobody believes maps these days. I mean,
or Puerto Rican dudes, apparently. So, so they end up on the island. There's a Stegosaurus scene. This is also one of those. There's like kind of a Star Trek moment where Richard Schiff is kind of saying what's happening because the movie cuts away from like there's a couple of shots of the Stegosaurus and then cut to Richard Schiff. He's like, oh, they're leaving. Oh, okay.
Are they? One of my biggest problems with this movie is that they just have people say what is happening behind the camera sometimes.
Yeah.
And it happens like at least 3 times, I feel like, in this movie where it's like, why can't you just show us that, though?
Yeah. You
had a camera pointing that direction a second ago.
That's what the budget called for.
Well, because there's the later scene.
Do you not remember who's in this movie? They had to pay a cast.
You want to see 2 T-Rexes or not?
Yes, please.
So you get no Stegosaurus is leaving. All right.
So then we find out that Kelly is on the island. So now Jeff Goldblum has reason to get off the island because Julianne Moore doesn't want to. He forgets how to use binoculars real quick, which I'll include somehow with this. But he puts the big end up to his eyes, which I can only imagine that since this was like 1996 and Steven Spielberg liked to do everything for real, that they couldn't afford to fly 20 helicopters past their location location again. To get the binoculars right. So he was just like, hopefully nobody notices. And I didn't until today, watching it for like the 10th time.
That was something. Yeah, I never noticed that either.
I mean, when it gets to the point where you're not watching what's happening in the movie, but you're watching the side characters, I feel like, you know, it's not a big deal. It's just like a funny thing that I know. Like, it doesn't change my... Because it's another thing of like... coffee cup gate, I guess we'll call it. Of like, I didn't notice it when I was watching the episode. Yeah, because you're watching the conversation in the front of the foreground.
What's happening?
I'm not watching the fucking table in front of her. Like, I don't.
Maybe it's just somebody was really hungry. Like, what are they eating back there?
Starbucks.
Oh my god, Daenerys drinks Starbucks.
It's not Starbucks.
What was it?
It's just a coffee cup.
It's just a coffee cup. It's like a...
There's no like
logo on it.
Branding.
No, but yeah.
So anyway, we get introduced to a bunch of Marlboro men, as Jeff Goldblum refers to them later.
Yeah, they are.
You get I guess he's supposed to be Jack Horner. A Jack Horner type character, like cowboy hat, gross long hair, who's just yelling out dinosaur names.
Mr. Dino Facts.
Which I don't know why they made Pete Postlethwaite. Like in the movie, he's trying to like point out which ones are which. It's like, put the dinosaur expert with him so that he can be like, which one's that? And then he'll say, instead of trying to make this, he's trying to flip through like a flip book of dinosaur names.
It's like fucking flashcards. He's trying to like,
which he eventually just throws out because they're on. He's like bouncing around trying to read this thing, and he doesn't know. He can't. I think he might be.
He's dyslexic, dude.
Dyslexic and
don't be rude.
Yeah.
Dinosaur names are hard.
They are really hard.
There's like U's and X's and H's where there should not be next to each other.
I constantly am like, Bennett's like, which one's this? He's like, and I'm like, that is Daddy. Daddy reads that one. Oh, I know this one. It's Tyrannosaurus Rex. I win.
You just type it into Google and then go and push the little
button. Like,
yeah, my Google is
Petratodolacedon.
Jonathan.
Like that one. That's the one.
Let's see. So we get some actual sympathizing with the dinosaur moments here, which I don't feel like we got in the first film.
Not really. The first movie was more of the spectacle of seeing them,
the shock and awe.
There's a slight dinosaur sympathy moment, but it's more of a, oh my god, this is so great, when she like finds the Stegosaurus who's sick.
Or the
Triceratops who's sick, and she's
like, also in the scene where like they're in the treetops with the Brachiosaurus is kind of like that, but it's done more from the standpoint of this like how crazy that we're here.
This is amazing. I'm so in love.
It's not just
this is like pulling at your heartstrings. Like, look at these poor animals.
Like fuckers. What are they doing?
Man, are the real monsters.
Also, film. The deadliest game.
However, like that scene of them chasing them down on the cars and all of that, like that's some good action right there. Like
that sold some fucking toys.
That sold some motorcycle dudes who they just made Carter. You don't really find out that's him, but like the toy was
named Carter. I remember that. Yeah, you had that guy.
Yeah, and he's actually a character in the movie.
Yeah,
but I don't. Like
that is like some Star Wars stuff of like naming characters.
George Lucas just sitting down,
was a character.
writing down random letters. These are the characters' names now. IG-88. Fuck it, why not?
Why not? Kit Fisto.
Shit.
Always my favorite.
Raptor number 3.
Yeah.
You get some the Hammond's nasty little nephew is also on the island.
Why?
So he can be on the video later on?
They didn't need to make that video on the island with live specimens, like, because he's like video chatting that to investors, which I understand, but like, why isn't he in the room with them with a video of the camp that they set up?
It could be that, going on safari, like rich bastards going on safari sort of thing, like getting in the middle of it. It could be like,
which is literally like Pete Postlethwaite literally calls him out for exactly that.
Right. So I think it's that sort of idea. Like he is this kind of person who's going to go out there and stand next to the fucking lion he's about to shoot after some guys have already tranked it. Right? Like, I think he's that kind of guy, and that's why he's out there. But then it also serves its purpose to show like his investors and everything. And I mean, at the time, like, look at this really awesome video conference we have going on. Look how good this looks. Do you know how much money I have? Let me show you.
Spared no expense.
So non-story tangent real quick is that I was kind of like, oh, that's kind of sad that Pete Postlethwaite like talks about how he's tired of taking out rich dentists to go on safari, and then like 20 years later that dumbass shot that lion. What was that
the lion's name?
I can't remember.
Harambe.
Nailed it. Shit.
But then story wise, like one of the things that was in the book that they cut out was that actually in the book, InGen was like completely dissolved at this point. So I'm assuming at some point they had put in like the InGen was like in financial trouble, so they needed like emergency securing of all these funds, and then like I'm assuming he was there just to make sure that it didn't go tits up, because otherwise the company would be in the shitter.
Yeah, that's fair.
So we get some of that. We get some of the one part that kind of makes me cringe from Vince Vaughn, which is kind of some bad dialogue when he was like, oh, by the way, Hammond thought that they might be sending some guys, so they sent up a backup plan. And then Julianne
What's
Moore,
the backup plan?
Me. That's still a bad line to this day. It's like, no, the backup plan is, oh, I'm going to go down there and fuck up some shit.
Yeah, I'm going to sabotage everything that they've just tried to set up.
Yeah, it's not me. It's like one of those tough guy lines that Vince Vaughn just can't do tough guy. I think was part of it. This was a weird era for Vince Vaughn too, because
kind of finding his place.
Finding his place, because he had done Swingers.
Yeah,
he was either had just done or was about to do Psycho.
I think Psycho was the next. Was 98.
Okay, yeah. And then also he had just either had just done or was about to do The Cell as well. Like,
oh, I forgot he was in that.
Yeah, like
he's like one of the detectives, right?
He's one of the
partner.
detectives.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, it's just like thinking about like the mid to late 90s was just like, it's a weird Vince Vaughn time.
Yeah.
Before he just leaned into that Swingers character and was just like, hey, can you do that for an hour and a half?
Yeah.
We'll make a movie out of that.
So yeah, there's a bunch of chaos ensues as they let all the animals loose. The big rich guy
scene too.
Yeah, the
trashing the camp.
Just the Triceratops. Is it the Triceratops that just looks up the tent?
Yeah.
God. It's still even today, like 22 years later, like when that Triceratops busts through the tent, I still jumped. I was like, oh, because it's still like I was still like in a place where I started to relax, and I was like, oh, this is a movie, Triceratops. Right. There's another scene later too that is still works on a tension level.
So this is another. So at this point, when he's doing the video chat, Roland Tembo. That's a name I'm never. That's right off the Tembo.
Roland Cole.
He and Ajay are like in a tree. They parked themselves in a tree to watch for the TRex
because they kidnapped the infant.
Yeah. So all of that is also going on at this point. And I remember I don't know if it's the Triceratops, but like one of the dinosaurs like explodes a Jeep and makes it fly like what seems like
330 yards.
Fucking yards up and over to the tree to land like almost on top of them.
You couldn't imagine it's too close. You wouldn't want like a T-Rex come barreling through the camp to come to their location. So it has to be far away. Like that goes a long way. That's a long distance travel by
that Triceratops just like quickly got on his keyboard and typed in God mode and then just like yeeted that Jeep at the tree.
Some Just Cause action on that Jeep. So then you get, they save the T-Rex infant, take it back to their trailer. And this is actually...
That's another thing, thinking like, location wise is that the T-Rex nest has to be right outside of their camp, because they go from sabotaging the camp to just walking over and picking up the T-Rex.
Well, I think they moved it out of the nest because at the nest, because they're saying that the nest was downwind.
Oh,
and they couldn't stay upwind of it, so they had to move it out of there. But yeah, so they moved it to a different location. There's a lot of location bending in this movie, though, because things like are in weird relations to each other. So they take the baby T-Rex back to their RV. There's the T-Rex attack, which this sequence is still pretty good though too. Like the effects still hold up pretty well. Yeah. I don't know what they did to them, but whatever they did to it makes things look like they're actually there. Like the motion blur, I think, is better than you usually see on effects, even to this day, where things, because like that when RJ and Ajay.
Yeah, it's actually a name, not initials.
I had the same problem with Far Cry 4, where the character's name is either RJ or Ajay, but everyone has that like British accent.
Yeah.
So that it sounds exactly the same.
The only reason I know his name is Ajay is because of Lego Jurassic World, where he is a character you can unlock.
I thought closed captioning.
Nope.
Yep.
But that would be the way to do it, but I waited until I played a video game.
but there's the scene where they like jump out of the tree and run away as the Jeep is like falling right on top of them, and it still looks pretty. They did some good rotoscoping there. Yeah. So yeah, there's the big RV getting pushed off the cliff scene,
which is real tense.
Yeah, Richard Schiff gets bifurcated, I guess.
He gets 8.
Yeah,
he does. So when I first saw this movie, so like the first movie and the third movie I saw in theaters. This one I did not see, but I did see it. I was hungover. My mom didn't know I was hungover. She thought I was sick, and like I was, I don't know, 97. When would have this come out? Video like 98. So I was about 16. So like, and I was just like laying in my bed, just like pretty sure it was Boone's Farm hungover. And I was just like, my mom was like, "Oh, you don't feel like we got Lost World last night? Do you want to watch it?" Like, and I was like, "Yeah." So like, I was not in a state of mind to watch this movie at that time, especially this scene. I felt sick watching.
That's when you eat all your lunch all over the floor.
But like it was also, I remember it being absolutely terrifying because I was just like laying in the dark. I felt like shit, and I just, right as soon as they start hitting that, like, this was made for some 3D glasses, like hitting that glass, like I was like, I gotta pause this shit. Hold on, this is making me like, so I have very like painful fond memories.
Yeah, this whole scene, like the whole RV going over the cliff,
just sliding off them,
just sliding off the cliff, and then like the Rex is coming back and like murking Toby Ziegler
just to let you fuckers know.
Yeah.
Don't take our kid.
Like that. I remember sitting in the back seat of our car at the drive-in theater, like watching this movie, and like at that point, like when that happened, I was like, "Oh, I'm too young for this movie."
Well, this scene is kind of what ruined our opinion, I think, for you and me for so long, just because as a family, this scene was such a terrible filmmaking, not even like as a bad thing to happen. So I think it kind of colored our opinion going until I've rewatched it recently and like, you know what? This isn't like the worst movie I've ever seen.
Yeah, no.
I think it's a worse rap than it gets. So then Roland Tembo and all of them save, or they pull up Julianne Moore, Jeff Goldblum, and Vince Vaughn. And then they decide that since all of their equipment has been destroyed. Somehow they put all of their equipment in one location for the Triceratops to destroy.
Yeah.
That one tent.
That one tent had everything.
It was my everything.
They decide to go to the main facility of Site B to get a radio.
What luck that Site B even had a main facility to begin with, and wasn't just because I realized they kind of like established that Jurassic Park was meant to be a show floor where they brought the animals and they just like, okay, here is the one that you get to see right now. And that Site B was where they kind of raised the animals,
where they kept them,
which my question is, okay, you literally had animals being born on it within the park grounds of Jurassic Park. Did those ones just go straight to the park, or did those ones then get transported back to this other island to then later be brought over once they were grown up? Like, why did you even have that lab on that island?
I think that was just for the show.
I think so. I think that's for like the tour of it, so you can see kind of how it happens, what happens, and then like I would infer just kind of how everything was set up after this movie, after the second movie. Yeah, they would probably ship them over, raise them over there until they were big enough to...
Or it could be even just, these were just the ones, because I imagine that Hammond was like, ooh, when a tour goes through, they'll be so excited to see me watching these things hatch. Yeah, that's just how he was. He was like,
it would be awesome if you're just like, you just learned how it happens, and then here it is, and little fucker pecks his face out. Yeah. And he's like, there it is.
Not a lot happens between. Well, I guess there's two big set pieces between here and when they get to the facility. The first one being the T-Rex attack, which was this other scene that I was talking about, where you're seeing somebody watching something happen, but you're not sure
of the thing happening.
But it's never really clear. Like, you don't see him watching it. So you're like, is he actually watching the T-Rex, or is he? Is he listening? Because at first he's listening for something. And then he like looks up, and then he like freezes again. But there's no like establishing like you just assume that he's watching it.
It's not until it's weird because they do the shot of just Jeff Goldblum trying to stand perfectly still while something is happening. Then you cut inside the tent with Julianne Moore and the daughter and like the T-Rex head coming through that, and then you cut back outside to him standing still, and you have to infer that he's either watching it happen or like knows something is happening. But it's not until somebody else wakes up and alerts the entire camp that something is going on that you get a shot from behind Jeff Goldblum of the tent with the T-Rex head inside of it as it like throws the tent, which good thing the tent didn't have a bottom, I guess, because it would have just thrown the two of them across the...
Well, for that one, for like canvas tents, you wouldn't have a bottom because it would just, like in that weather, it would just turn to mush because of all the mold. So I'm assuming it's just like one of those, like...
It's literally just a triangle.
Tight, and then you put other shit on the ground.
Yeah.
Keep from getting muddy.
So yeah, there's a big chase scene here.
They killed Jack Horner.
Jack Horner gets killed, which like he gets killed. I learned when I was a very young child, if red touches yellow, you're a dead fellow. Red touches black, you're okay, Jack. And
he did not learn that.
He didn't, because he learned all about dinosaurs. Well, because there's two snakes that are red, black, and yellow.
Yeah,
one of them is poisonous. One of them isn't.
I've never heard that rhyme in that.
Like,
I've never heard like that rhyme. Yeah,
you grew up in Texas, dude.
They don't have copperheads.
They don't have. Yeah.
No, those are It's a king snake and a copper something, isn't it? They're not in Texas. You gotta watch out for water moccasins.
Yeah, yeah.
Anyway,
yes, Josh. By the way, that's the rhyme.
That's a rhyme.
Red
so
touches
never heard, like,
yellow, you're a dead fellow. Red touches black, you're okay, Jack.
Because I know, like,
so you know
what not to do.
Yeah,
but
to be fair, when a snake's coming at you,
don't touch it.
You really don't have time to go, what's your stripes doing? What's your stripes doing?
Yeah.
Or you're like,
because it's literally like it's like going into his shirt.
I'm going to take my chances of that. Literally, then running fist first into a T-Rex mouth. Like that's what essentially he runs, throws his arm up inside the T-Rex's mouth, and gets pulled outside.
Yeah,
and then turns into fruit punch Kool-Aid.
The magic of filmmaking.
And then a couple seconds later, Jeff Goldblum does his best, like yell, like he's like doing a T-Rex roar as he's running through the waterfall, so you get a quick fake out.
Yeah, because like
there's like but then it turns out to be
it's just Jeff Goldblum.
So then this cuts into the next. See, this is where like the whole. I feel like they could have done a callback with the raptors as far as when they're hunting, the one you see is not the one that attacks you; it's the ones coming in from the side. Whereas in this one, it's just the one you see plus the 20 other ones you see
are the one that kill you.
There's just a bunch of them. Like, don't swim in a sea of velociraptors.
Don't go into the long grass. As Ajay yells several times.
That is again another awesome scene, just like seeing like
when like the guys are just running and all of a sudden they just like disappear under the grass.
Yeah,
and the tail flies up.
It's just like great like.
Another thing that did not translate to our shitty car radio when we saw it as a kid, but when like watching it now, is that when our main four stop in that field, not with the mercenaries, and like Jeff Goldblum stops for a second, and, like he's listening, and you can actually hear like in the distance, like dudes getting fucking wrecked.
Yeah, and
that's why he's like, we need to run. Watching it at the drive-in theater, I was like, what is happening again?
Why do we have to run?
That would be a callback to the scene in the RV where he like picks up the phone to talk to Richard Schiff, and then he like intuits that the T-Rexes are going to push the RV over.
Yeah,
I still haven't figured that one out yet. The other thing that you couldn't tell in the drive-in theater is that there were actually velociraptors and not just like little dark lines going through the grass, because I did see it this time I was watching a crisp DVD master cut of the Lost World, and you actually can see little velociraptor bodies.
You see them like there.
But in the drive-in, it was so dark that you could just barely see.
A crane shot of just dudes walking through a field and then them disappearing.
So what I'm hearing is you need to watch this movie again so that you see the little velociraptor heads.
Well, I'm just saying, don't go see it at the drive-in and think that you've seen the movie, essentially, unless you have a good car stereo and the sun has gone down before the movie starts.
And you're sitting next to the screen and...
Well, I feel like, for this particular drive-in, they have improved a lot. Like the screen is wider now, and they threw up a digital projector, so it's a little bit brighter.
I'm sure that helps.
Yeah. So
because there's like so much bleed because it's tucked like out of the city limits. It's up off the road, but like
it's a good 200 yards away from the screen too.
Yeah, and it's like
So you have that Game of Thrones effect of like this movie's too dark. I can't see anything. You should have had a better setup.
I should have turned the brightness up on my iPhone.
So this is another time when like the geography of the island doesn't make a lot of sense, because they go running through the grass, fall down a hill, end up in a like burial yard or like the raptor den, where a bunch of dinosaurs had fallen over and died and gotten picked clean down to the bone. Yeah. It looks cool. But that's like, then, so they accidentally fall into where the facility is.
Another thing that I remember as a kid, so we see that shot of like the dinosaur bones, like littering the ground. And then the entryway to the facility is like
through the dinosaur
through a rib cage like structure thing that, like, again, at that theater I thought they were literally walking through a dinosaur to get to the facility. It's like, no, it's metal beams. it's basically like they built a cage that you would enter through, but it didn't look like that when we first watched the movie. So it was like they're walking through a dinosaur to get to the dinosaurs.
Just like Power Rangers.
It works on so many levels.
So at this point, this facility looks a lot better than the one in the next movie does. In so far as filmmaking goes, like the buildings are in better shape in the next movie, but like it doesn't look as good because most of it's not real.
Yeah.
This is a really nice big set, which you don't really see. Like anytime you see a big set that's more than just like a 10 by 10 square where the actors have to like mime doing stuff in front of a green screen, it's always nice to go back and see, because like, oh yeah, people doing things in a space. It's always like you forget that people used to do that.
Yeah.
There's a whole bunch of rigmarole. There's Jeff Goldblum's daughter, gymnastic kicks a raptor into a spike.
Yeah.
Which they set up early in like her introductory scene that she does gymnastics.
Yeah.
That's justification.
That's justification.
She also has the strength of fucking horse.
Yeah. Falcon kicks it out the window.
You know.
I mean, plus this raptor gives her a lot of lead time because she yells at it. It turns
kind of like, so,
and then
what do you want?
They like watches her as she's like spinning around like 5 or 6 times. Like,
yeah.
I was trying to figure out what's going on. Just like,
It was like, what is this tiny meat bag doing? I'm just gonna eat it.
I mean, I guess Steven Spielberg didn't want us to get confused about what happened, so he's like, let's show her spinning around a couple times so they can see what's happening. But
yeah.
So there's some more chase stuff. I do like it's kind of funny when Jeff Goldblum's like running in and out of the building and the raptor is just like jumping through all the glass to get to him.
This whole like once the raptors come into play, there's like a whole lot of like really good like tension.
Yeah,
all of those scenes.
Well, this scene is still the one that I was like, ooh, what's going to happen? Even though I've seen it before. It's like, it still has that element.
This is the part of the movie, like when we first watched it, that like a little kid me was like, oh man, like Vince Vaughn's going to die.
Yeah. I mean, he probably shouldn't have.
Yeah. I kept waiting. I know even now I keep waiting for him to die. Like every time I've seen it since, like I still like there's a part of me that I'm pretty sure he dies in that movie.
Yeah.
Like, I need to see it again to be proven.
I'm just waiting for that in every Vince Vaughn movie nowadays. So I'm like, when's this guy gonna die?
That's unrelated.
So a helicopter shows. Julianne Moore is trying to get away from some raptors, and they like get real close to her. Like I think they didn't block it out right, and they had to get everyone in the same frame. They had to put them really close because like they're rubbing up against her as the two are like fighting each other, like rolling back and forth across her.
Yeah.
There's also a thing that it comes up later where Jeff Goldblum is trying to get away from the raptors, and he decides that he's going to do that by running past the raptor instead of in the opposite direction. When it's like
when he runs to the shed, right?
Right before he's going to something happens to one of the raptors where it like falls down, and he decides that he's going to get away from it by running past it instead of like this. This is done a lot worse in a couple of movies that we'll get into that. So yeah, Julianne Moore's trying to get away from a raptor. There's a couple of them that are fighting because one fell on top of the other. There's a little back and forth. She does a combat roll through a hole in the ground onto a lighting rig that falls down. She bounces off of a table through a window into the arms of Jeff Goldblum. So that was...
I still don't understand the anatomy of how she starts on the ground.
Yeah, she like goes from a roof to the ground underground,
falls through 3 buildings,
through a window,
rolls out a window
into
where Jeff Goldblum is waiting to take her up a couple stairs to a helicopter.
Sometimes you're just good at rolling them natural 20s. Like, it's just how it works out.
You didn't notice the Escher stairs that she rolled down for a second?
That would have been a good scene where she's just rolling around in circles and then like the perspective shifts and it's to Escher painting. Kind of like Inception. And then JGL shows up and tells her how, like, this is the world we built. So Roland Tembo tranquilizes a T-Rex. They slap in a cage.
Not even a very good cage. Like, it's a pretty shoddy looking cage.
Better than the one
T-Rex should have busted out of that cage.
Just like one of those little like dollar store locks.
Yes.
It's a better cage than the semi trailer they use later in the series, but
yeah, that's fair.
Especially one that is so easily torn to shreds by the T-Rex, but we'll get to that.
That movie.
Jeff Goldblum and our merry band of heroes see the T-Rex getting shipped up, and then smash cut to probably the biggest gap in quality in filmmaking in a single movie between a early section and a later section, because you've had your 3 acts that you do in your 3-act structure film, and then Steven Spielberg decided, you know what, this needs a 4th act.
Not gonna see that coming.
Let's get the movie that nobody asked for to be in this movie.
This is when not only is it nobody wants it, there is some nice casual racism happening here.
Awful pacing issues happening.
Yeah, characters making weird choices. Instead of, like, my thing is, you call the cops, they bring some shotguns, they bring this thing down. But they've decided instead, for some reason, that they have to save the like, at this point in the series is when the dinosaurs start becoming bulletproof, because we can't just shoot it. That's no good. We got to save it.
You had your dinosaur sympathy moments, so now they can't shoot this T-Rex.
Right. The movie,
you built up for this last little while that, like, these dinosaurs, they're only doing this because we've been awful to them. And so you're like, well, we can't kill this T-Rex. We took it from its island.
So just don't have this whole fucking part of the movie. Maybe you don't have that.
Also, maybe don't, if you're going to have this part of the movie, film the scene where when the boat is leaving the island, the velociraptors get on board and kill the crew so that it does make some sort of sense that there is just random arms and hands still attached to controls on the boat.
T-Rex got in there.
And then climbed back into the storage cell.
You know,
I think I think this would also have benefited from less T-Rex scenes, because I think that, like, really messes with the tone, because, like, the Jeff Goldblum, Julianne Moore parts are, like, comedic because it's all jokes when they're on screen, and then you're intercutting that with, like,
the T-Rex just murdering
everybody.
people.
Yeah, it's like eating the screenwriter David Koepp, or Koepp, as he likes to be called, but I refuse to for this film.
David Koepp. Well, he sure got what was coming to him, didn't he?
Him and those Japanese fellas running down the street from the T-Rex.
Oof.
I really feel like this was a secondary movie that everybody was like, no, Steven, you don't get any more money. Like, we're not going to make another one of these films. And he was like, well,
okay,
then fine. Shove it into one.
Now
like,
it's the end of this movie.
It really should have been its own movie. It had enough premise to be its own movie. He's setting it up.
That second movie.
It's almost like he was told, you can't have this be a movie. And he was like, well, fuck it, I still want it.
There's so much premise, you can actually take 2 movies to set up this part of the movie later on. Anyway, they get the baby T-Rex, put it back on the boat. Nasty Nephew follows them on and gets his comeuppance. He got what John Hammond should have gotten in the first movie.
But John Hammond had an off-screen redemption arc.
Also, Peter Stormare ends up getting the John Hammond treatment, because in the Jurassic Park novel, John Hammond like goes wandering off for some reason.
He was drunk as hell,
and he like trips down like an embankment and then gets put upon by compies. And that's how he ends up getting his comeuppance. So they decided to give that to Peter Stormare. He kind of deserved it though. Like all of these,
you know.
Yeah, he was a dick. Using his taser on little tiny dinosaurs and shit.
It's just
fuck that guy.
Just doing it to be an asshole.
Yeah.
So I feel like up until the point where they decided they had too many characters and they had to like clear the deck a little bit. I think this also followed the Jurassic Park rule where you knew the characters' names of the characters that were killed, because you had Dieter, you had Carter, you had Ajay. I guess that's it.
Jack Horner actually has a name.
Like he's actually a character. He's
Dr.
not just
Burke.
Yeah, like he has a character to him. He's not just like a person that appears on screen to get killed. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like for the most part, up until the Raptors
T-Rex
get
chase.
introduced, the T-Rex chase kind of like wipes out a few dudes, but most of them just get completely decimated in the raptor scene.
Yeah,
where that's just nothing but
a good palate cleanser right there.
Yeah, like, there's too many characters going to this location. We need to clear the deck a little bit.
Raptors, so just shush. We got it. Raptors.
What if there were the exact same number of raptors as there were two random dudes we need to kill?
Perfect.
But yeah, like up until that point, I feel like it was following the same rules where you introduce a character and then you kill them off, and you make sure that it's either not cool that they're dying because they're a person that you don't want to see die, like Eddie. Oh, Eddie, I forgot about Eddie. Yeah. Where you're like, oh, that's too bad. And it wasn't like, you weren't like, yeah, get him, Eddie. Or get him, T-Rex.
Get that Eddie.
Get that fucking Eddie. That'll show him for trying to save those people. Yeah. Or it's like, Dieter, who's like an asshole to the compies, and like, yeah, he got what he's coming to him. Or really the only bad guy, or like Ajay is really the only one I'm like, oh, I kind of feel bad for him because like
he dies off screen.
And Peter Stormare probably kidnapped him from India when he was there one time when he was like a little kid and made him come along with him.
Well, that's okay. So going into deleted scenes, which depending on if you watch this on TV or if you watch this on DVD, the deleted scenes are actually in the movie. Ajay and Roland are actually like old friends who went on safaris together like frequently, and they've known each other for years.
Because he took him from India.
Because he kidnapped him as a child.
Because British imperialists, blah blah blah. But that's
you skipped some casual racism there.
But that's why he brings him along, because it's actually Ajay. I'm pretty sure there's a scene where Ajay goes and finds him and is like, "Hey, I got a job," and he's like, "I'm not in the business of doing that anymore. Like, I have a lodge. You've seen my lodge. You know I have everything possible stuffed and mounted." And Ajay's like, "You don't have one of these." And that's what gets him to the island.
Oh, so it's like a pre-scene then.
Yeah, it's before they get to the island where it's like, you're going to want to hunt this.
I feel like I saw that scene. I feel like
when they show it on TV, they have that scene in there, actually. There's another scene. There's like a couple deleted scenes that they just put in there when they show it on TV.
I feel
like 90s version of Homeward Bound did the same thing, where there were some deleted scenes where when you watched it on TV, they had those scenes in there. I don't know if it's like a weird
there isn't.
We need to format it for X amount of time,
right?
So
with commercial breaks,
so it's 3 hours long.
Yeah, like what do we
have to take out any motherfuckers?
Yeah, what do we put in to like pad that runtime to get us to this block of time?
Because otherwise we have a 2.5 hour movie that we need to fill.
Yeah,
we need
like
15 minutes that we need to fill somewhere. Yeah.
So speaking of scenes that you would swear you remember, did you see Independence Day in theaters?
Yeah.
So when you saw it, there's the scene with Jeff Goldblum and Harvey Fierstein, like right when the aliens first show up, and when we went to see it in the theaters, there's like a moment where like things are starting to rumble. And then in our theater, all the lights shut off, the screen shut, like everything turned off for like 30 seconds. And everyone's like, what's going on? And then everything came back up. And then like the characters were reacting to what had just happened. Like,
really?
You remember that?
I don't remember that.
That did not happen for us.
No.
That sounds awesome.
Like, was that like a coincidence, or like, I don't know.
That might have been a coincidental 4D effect.
Yeah, but like, that's like one of those things, like one of those memories where I'm like, I remember that happening, where like everyone's like, what's going on? Like everything shuts off. Like everyone in the theater is like, hey, what's going on? And then everything comes on and all the characters like looking around, like power just come out. Like,
my God, that's the only way I'm gonna watch that movie.
I know, right? I'm like, okay.
I'm gonna plan.
So when I watch Independence Day for the first time, somebody
TV.
needs to turn things off
Just
for
like
me.
Turn your TV back on, hit pause again.
hire a friend and be like, okay, at 8:35, throw all the breakers.
Yeah, Josh, I'm gonna
fuck
watch
my house
Independence
up.
Day for the first time. Can you help me out? Thanks.
The best way to watch Independence Day Resurgence is to take the disc, break it in half, and throw it out the window. So yeah, that is The Lost World, Jurassic Park. I would say if you're a fan of the first Jurassic Park, I think this is almost as good as a sequel as you could get. So I would
It's
say
definitely worth a watch.
yeah, I'd say it's
Definitely watch it and
Yeah.
go in with an open mind. It's
Yeah.
not the same movie, but it's good.
maybe when you see them all in the helicopter flying away.
Just roll credits right there.
Turn it
Right.
off.
Just
turn it off. The end. The end.
That's not a bad.
There it is.
not a
There it
bad-
was.
Oh, I wonder what's
Good
going to happen to that
job.
T-Rex when they put it on the boat. We don't know. They didn't film it.
Nothing happened to it.
You'll have to find out in the next movie. That never existed.
Yeah, that's what somebody needs to do, just like a air quotes fan cut of it when it gets to that scene, and then like the helicopter flies away, and then it just smash cut to footage not found, and then roll credits.
Or you could even just like smash cut to John Hammond on TV talking about
Yeah,
leaving the dinosaurs the hell alone, and then you roll credits.
Yeah.
So recommend, not recommend.
I would say recommend it if you like the first one and haven't seen it.
Yeah.
Like, definitely give it a watch. Like, I feel like it's worth watching, but I can totally understand if you come out of it.
Like, what the fuck
with
did I just
lower-
watch?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I would say like for the cast, like just wait until all the cast has been introduced and go, holy shit, they got all these people into one place for this movie.
yeah.
I think it's worth it for that, just for the star power they got.
I would say it's if you like Jurassic Park, but you were like, what if they let the dinosaurs go ape shit? Then you'll like this movie.
Yeah.
I do think it's definitely like it's definitely the sign of like, oh, let's make a lot of big action scenes. That's what sold the first one, right?
Yeah.
Like, it definitely. But I
It
will
wasn't
give
the
it,
dinosaurs.
I will give it props because I feel like it started the little trend of, at least with this one, and then the third one of, all right, we know we left out some dinosaurs that you wanted to see in the first movie, but here they are. Here's your Stegosaurus. Here's some other shit that
There's
you're
a
gonna get to see.
Triceratops. It's not dead.
It does stuff like, because then, I mean, the third one then gives you all that other stuff that like you didn't get out of these first
They
two
do,
movies.
they
So like
keep
they do a
adding
good
more
job of like
obscure
giving you
ones.
dinosaurs. Like they like, it's not hurting for dinosaurs.
No.
Yeah.
It's just not as emotionally impactful as the first one. This is just a dinosaur movie.
So I would say that Jurassic Park is little kid you excited about dinosaurs. Lost World is teenage you, let's watch some dinosaurs fuck some shit up.
It is. If you like dinosaurs, definitely fucking watch this.
Yeah, 'cause I feel like where the first one is the first one is like that.
It's like a parable almost about not fucking with nature and
and it's a character piece. It's a this movie. I can see how like, oh yeah, this movie was to sell toys because it sold a fuck ton of toys.
To be fair, they were badass toys.
Yeah, they were. I owned so many of them because they were rad ass. But like while like the first movie had toys, and I understand like this movie seemed so much more of like, what can we do that would definitely turn into a toy? And it's Action Joe and his Humvee coming to steal the dinos.
Got a net shooting action.
Yeah. Fucking parasailing, Ian Malcolm's gonna save the day.
Underwater scuba.
Scuba, Dieter Stark coming in. He's gonna steal the
changing armor.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely recommend.
Yeah, I'd give it 7 out of 10 George Clooney's.
Oh shit, that's a lot of George Clooney.
Wow, what the? For a movie with no Clooney's, that's a lot of Clooney's.
That's a lot of Clooney's. It's like you said, it's as good a sequel as
you could expect.
It's also as good a sequel as it will ever get.
So on that note, thanks everybody for listening. Check us out on Twitter at MoistBoysPod, on Patreon at patreon.com/MoistBoysPodcast. Also check out the Stitcher app. We are on there, Moist Boys Podcast. Hopefully by the time, if you're listening to this, we will be on iTunes and Google Podcasts as well, so you can check us out there. If not, we will be on one of the aforementioned ones. But so things are changing around here.
Coming up in the world.
Yeah, times they are changing, as somebody once said. Thank you everyone.
I was there. We're going to the east side now.
Listening, and we will see you next time.